There are more than 100 unique styles of beer, each with their own set of ingredients, process, guidelines, history, and experience. If you're a beer lover, an industry leader, or somewhere in between, a better knowledge of beer style will improve your life and your work.
Welcome to A Sense of Beer Style, essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. I'm Julia Herz.
And I'm Jeremy Storton.
We're advanced Cicerones, beer judges, home brewers, and we're excited to guide you through the vast and wonderful world of beer styles. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the episode on American wheat beer as part of the Standard American Beer Guidelines based on 2021 Beer Judge Certification Guidelines. What a super fun beer that doesn't get as much due, right?
Absolutely.
And this is a beer that, I mean, it really needs more talk. I'm gonna crack one open while we're talking and talk about what I've got in a little bit.
I'm
Jeremy's got one going. Cool. I am pouring as I speak, but this is certainly a gateway beer that really craft brewers, U.S. craft brewers that have grown and come of age, brought onto the scene. And it's modeled after German Hefeweizen, we shall say, and that's a whole nother style to get to know. But basically, it's a little less wheat malt in percentage wise, and it also has definitely different yeast strains than a Hefeweizen. So I'm really excited to give a chance and some due to this style, get you all dialed into it. And I do think it's a very relevant style. With that, Jeremy, why don't you give us a good overview of the ingredients for American wheat?
Yeah, perfect. And frankly, I'm with you. I love this beer style. I still love this beer style, and it's brought so many people into the craft beer fold. So kudos to the style. One of the things that makes it so easy drinking is because you're still using base malts, typically of 2-row, but you can add 30 to 50% wheat malt to this. And that really, I'm jumping ahead, forgive me, but it gives it just this beautiful, like doughy, lemony flavor. Oh, God, that's gorgeous. But it's just that wheat malt that makes it so easy drinking and flavorful. But because it's an American wheat beer, you can use American hops, you can use German hops, you can use New World hops. Any hop you want is fair game. I think the distinction here, and you already brought it up, this is not a German Weiss beer. This is an American ale, and this is the interesting. You can use an American ale or even a lager yeast, but you should not have the German Weiss beer characters. This is more of a hop and wheat malt driven beer and less of a fermentation character yeasty beer. And that's one of the big things that we need to make sure we understand this. It can still be a little bit cloudy, especially if you roll your bottle before you open it. But it's going to have a little bit more hop presence in it. Let's talk about, and I kind of gave us a little bridge to talk about the overall sensory of what we can expect out of these type of beers.
Well, I kind of think you covered it.
Sorry.
You did great. And so with that, I'm going to go straight to appearance because I don't have anything to add to the overall high level impressions that you would want to discern. You're seeing two very different examples in my glass, by the way. Look at that collapsed collar of foam. I'll certainly need to look at the date on this. Widmer Brothers set the style, but what's the age of this? Why is that collar of foam collapsing so quickly? I don't know. Well, I'm not going to speculate. Look what you got.
I know. Well, because I poured this probably 10, 15 minutes ago and let it sit. So if I were to swirl it over my computer with a wild abandon, then I probably could get some more foam out of it. But that is a beautiful glass.
And back to appearance, this is a standard German Hefeweizen glass that I was frisky enough to pour my American wheat beer into. And it's appropriate, right? And so that's helping that collar of foam, I think, remain stable. Yeah. But I do think there's a discernible difference in these two beers, being the Boulevard American Wheat and the Hefe glass. So appearance is pale yellow to gold, just like cream ale. Very similar, a little bit more maybe advanced color than our American lagers. Clarity range can be brilliant to hazy. Look at how much hazier the the Boulevard wheat is, and the Hefeweizen tall glass, this has got slight haze certainly, and is a little darker in color, more gold. The Widmer Hefeweizen, which is really an American wheat. So the color is going to range, and the clarity will range as well. And big, long-lasting collar of foam that is white is part of this appearance. So if I were judging this in competition, it would definitely get dinged.
Yeah. And that's one of the things to kind of be mindful of as well, because this is a wheat beer. There's a lot of leftover proteins in the beer that helps bring the haze. It depends on how you store your beer. If you store it like really cold and then are very careful in pouring, you can pour it so there's a little bit more clarity. If you roll it, if you swirl it, if you do as the Germans do, you pour half and then swirl it and pour the other half, then you'll have what I call the OG hazy beer.
Right, which is called rousing the yeast, and is much more common with Hefeweizen than it would be for American yeast or for American wheat, especially because American wheat, you're going to have that clarity, but you're not going to have the natural sediment of the yeast. It's just not indicative of the style.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, take us through aroma.
Great. I'm happy to. This is typically when I get a hold of one of these beers and it's in really good condition, what I expect to get out of this is just this low to medium, kind of grainy, doughy. It's almost like a wet pizza dough, or not wet pizza dough, but a pizza dough that's got a little bit of whole grain wheat in it too. I mean, I make pizza at home all the time and I get that same aroma, but these beers tend to add a little bit more of like a lemony, kind of like a lemon candy aroma to it as well. And I absolutely love that. You can get a 0 to moderate esters out of this with that fruit coming out of it. A lot of that's coming out of that, the ingredients that we just talked about. But the low to medium hop, it could be hops of any flavor, could be citrus, could be spicy, depends on which hops you use. But remember, in this style, hops are going to be fairly prominent, more so than the yeast character. So you should not expect, you should not have any banana character. You should not have or banana ester. You should not have any bubblegum ester. You should not have any clove phenols. That's indicative of the German wheat beers. This is American wheat beer. You should have a fairly clean yeast profile there.
Yeah, absolutely. And tied to flavor in most beer styles is very common and in synergy with the aroma. So it's not as crucial in this style to emphasize flavor over aroma because they're so similar, except for a few components, including bitterness. And from the carbonation, you've got this dry, crisp finish. I think it's important to say low to moderate hop bitterness. I do love the emphasis, Jeremy, of what you said of wet bread dough. My description for my Cicerone training certainly is take a piece of bread, a piece of white bread out of the bag from the grocery store, pull it out, pinch the middle of that bread and chew on that. And that's exactly what the flavor of these, malted 2-row, 6-row malts taste like. That are wheat malt. We want to emphasize for ingredients, you're going to have wheat as the main grain that is fermented. So that middle piece of the bread, that's what you get from bread flour. And often it's a wheat-based flavor that you can calibrate with. So that's the true, to me, predominant flavor in this. You're definitely getting some aroma and flavor notes from those American hops in a low level, but you've got a lot of balance. The bitterness is balancing the malt, which is balancing the residual sugar, which is balancing the ethanol. This is not a style that has like a big strata where one thing is spiking out on the flavor spider map of anything. So moderate esters, you kind of mentioned the aroma, certainly carry over to the flavor, and that's it. It's super delicious. The fresher, the better, and it should taste like bread in a glass.
Yeah, and it's easy drinking, but with flavor, with character, with body. And speaking of body, I'm going to talk about mouthfeel. Because of the wheat and because of the carbonation, because of all, mostly because of the wheat, you get a more body out of this than the other beers in a similar category. It's a medium low to a medium body. There are times I've had beers that have been almost like a medium high body just because they've been so fluffy and so and just so full, and it's just wonderful. You can expect a medium to high carbonation. You get a lot of carbonation and all this body and some dextrins, some wheat malts in there, and that's what is going to give you this just beautiful color foam. But all of that works together. One of the terms, and I think I just said it, that I heard from my mentors that kind of brought me along is the term fluffy. When you talk about the body of a beer being fluffy, the very first beer I think of is this beer. It's not quite creamy. There are beers that come across as creamy, but this one just feels like it's full of marshmallows, or they add pillows in the spaces between the flavor. There's just this light, airy feeling on the palate, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, I like it. I love that descriptor too. And in style comparison, we've talked a lot about the Weiss beer, the German Hefeweizen, but less hop character, less yeast character, big time than the German Weiss beer or Hefe. No banana and clove, as Jeremy said, from that yeast that would be more German style. This is with American ale yeast. And, same range as blonde ales. Blonde ales are very similar to this, but not wheat-based for the fermentable. That's a big difference between American wheat and blonde ales. And, wheat characters, the primary malt flavor.
Yeah. And let me bring it home to some of the commercial examples you can expect with this. One of the classics, not the first, but the one that really made the style famous and well known and brought a lot of people into the craft beer world would be the Hefe from Widmer. And I think you happen to have a bottle of that. That is the icon of the style, but it's not the only icon. Then, of course, Bell's from Michigan brought in Oberon, Boulevard. Their unfiltered wheat is another one that is just, these are all wonderful styles. And with the 2021 style guidelines, there's an addition that's very near and dear to my heart from my former area of Central Oregon. But Good Life Sweet As Pacific Pale was one of my favorite beers from that area, and that is now considered a great example of the American wheat ale style. All of those are just fabulous beers, and whether you're into IPAs or dark stouts or whatever it is, there's always room on the table for one of these.
All right, fantastic, Jeremy. And now let's get to vital statistics for this style. Original gravity. I almost think we shouldn't be talking original gravity, although I want everyone to memorize it because you somewhat need to know. So I'm going to take a risk and just talk final gravity, 1008 to 1013. That's a very common range, 1008 to 1012 for many of the styles in the style guidelines. It means it finishes relatively dry to sometimes, frankly, a little more body and a little more residual sugar. You've got an ABV of 4 to 5.5% alcohol by volume. That's very sessionable and where a lot of the day-to-day beers are in the ABV range. And then international bitterness units are 50 to 30, definitely above discernible levels of 8 IBUs. At 15, that's double 8. So 15, you're starting to try, taste and discern some bitterness. 30, you've got a pretty aggressive, hand me the beer style, and it might be on the Oberon level of like which one's more bitter, but most of them aren't going to go that high in bitterness. And then SRM is 3 to 6, relatively pale yellow to gold color.
Yeah. The type of glass. This is where I have a thing. You're often going to find this beer in a shaker pint glass because that's just the way that it is. That's the glass that proliferates throughout the U.S. and that just because it's easy, it's stackable, it's all that sort of stuff. I prefer this glass or this beer in the glass that you have, Julia, just because it does hold that collar foam up better. Or my all around go to glass for nearly everything is this kind of stemmed tulip. Even though it didn't hold the collar foam there, but there are better glasses for this beer. just understand that you're most likely going to find this in a shaker pint. So that being said, now we get to talk about something really fun. Is there's so much we can pair with this.
Absolutely. And so if you think of this as bread in a glass, predominantly because the 30 to 50% wheat malt in the grain bill, I want this with food wherever bread is appropriate, right? Let's have some turkey soup, and then I'm going to have it with my American wheat, right? Because that's going to serve the purpose of being like the bread complementing that soup. So I go to soups. I go to pairing it with sandwiches because sandwiches already have your standard bread. Baguette bread is great. Standard white or wheat bread would be perfect with this. Anything in that range. And then something with not too much of an aggressive protein or preparation to really dominate it. That would be a shame. We want this beer to augment the experience when you're pairing it with food and act like the bread on the plate.
Yeah, and I love using this because it does offer so many possibilities. Excuse me, a little burp there. Just earlier today, I had the occasion where I pulled out some hummus and some chips, and I pulled one of these beers out, and it was so good because this beer has that wheat character, that kind of doughy wheat character that lends itself, that offers that bridge to anything you're having with bread. I mean, this is great with anything savory, hamburgers, pizza, anything like that. And so you've got that doughy bridge. In this case, with the hummus, that little lemon zing just kind of added that nice little contrast to the creaminess of that hummus, and whatever hop character was in there just added to the like a seasoning on top of it, and it was sublime. It was beautiful. But we can use this just like a German wheat beer. We can add anything savory, and this will just be a wonderful counterpoint to whatever you're eating. Yep.
I love your pairings, and that I think brings us home.
Yep.
Happy studying and style guideline perusing and memorizing and tasting, because it's a super fun style to get to know.
Yep. And just a little final word of note, especially with this style, but when conducting beer research, one should be thorough. So make sure you get all of these styles and taste them. Anyway, cheers.
Right on. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to A Sense of Beer Style, the essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. With advanced Cicerones, me, Julia,
and me, Jeremy.
Tune into the next episode as we continue exploring the world of beer styles and what to make of them. We encourage you to listen to the prepisodes to build your foundation and better understand beer styles.
And before the next episode, I'd like to ask you to review the show and let us know what you'd like featured in upcoming episodes. Until next time, here's to you and your sense of beer style. Thank you for listening. Cheers.